gear happens here, and it blew up into pretty much the windsurfing mecca.
For 40 years, windsurfing has developed dramatically, and the gorge has had a significant impact on the progression of the sport. With constant changes in windsurfing, sail designer Bruce Peterson is continually improving the gear.
I always was looking at the gear I was riding thinking, well, this could be better, and this would be better if it was like this. And not finding what I wanted, I just started making my own gear.
The evolution of windsurfing equipment has gone from a simple sail on a surfboard to different types of sails and smaller, easier to manage boards.
The amount of performance I get out of the equipment in the sport just keeps getting better every year.
Probably most of the progression of windsurfing gear has been in the last maybe 10 years. A lot of things have happened with sails. You can use them in a bigger range of wind.
The reliably strong winds in the gorge have allowed Bruce and his team to develop and test new sails.
The wind is what makes this place so unique. Having a steady, consistent breeze is what draws all these people here.
There's high pressure off the coast, and there is a lot of hot air on the eastern deserts. The gorge is the only sea level gap between the Pacific high and intense heat out in the desert.
A typical day on the gorge can offer winds of 30 knots or better. The best days occur when the pressure gradient is the greatest, constantly pushing cool air toward hot air.
Cold, rainy weather in Portland, really hot, smoking, nasty weather in the desert gives us a ton of wind in the gorge.
Wind always wants to go from high pressure to low pressure, and it's going to find a way to do it. The gorge.
When everything comes together, then we get really good days.
Most people don't like wind, but here we are in a naturally windy place, and what better way to use it than to have fun?
You can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't touch it, nothing. It's just pushed. When it does that, it's magic.
Depends so much on conditions, and everything's got to be right. It means those times are just precious and golden.
More than 20 million years in the making, the Columbia River Gorge has weathered thousands of volcanic eruptions, some of the largest floods on the planet, as well as massive landslides. These events created a masterpiece canyon that provides thrills for water athletes all year round.
About 17,000 years ago, there was a flood from Lake Missoula that was based in Montana, and it was at the end of the Ice Age, so there was a big glacial dam that was holding back this huge, huge lake that was as big as Lake Erie and Lake Ontario combined. And within a matter of 48 hours, this lake flooded this whole region. The flow of that lake when it flooded was 10 times the combined flow of all the rivers in the world. That's what scoured out this gorge.
Water gushed at epic proportions, traversing through the Cascade Mountains, searching for an outlet.
These were destructive bulldozers of water that basically churned a sea level path right through the Cascade Mountains. A very impressive feat of engineering.
The Cascade Mountain Range, created by multiple volcanoes, now had a rushing river pushing toward the Pacific. The topography of the gorge may bring the delight of strong wind, but it is the erratic nature of that wind that continues to baffle athletes.
The wind in the gorge is constantly changing, and because of these 4,000-foot cliffs that are on either side of the wind channel, the wind will just bounce off of those and come from different directions and come at different speeds.
The wind can shut off completely. You end up swimming, and in a place like this with a strong current, you might not come in at the same place you left from.
The rapidly changing wind conditions in the gorge make it a little bit more dangerous.
Changes in the wind can inconvenience your day on the river, but other weather changes can be deadly.
You wouldn't want to be on the water with a 15-foot pole in the middle of the river during a thunder and lightning storm.
Beyond the natural weather hazards of the gorge, there's another danger to contend with.
Here in the gorge, the boat traffic, like to see a barge coming here behind us right now, this is commercial shipping traffic that goes up and down the gorge. You got to give them the right of way. Those big barges, they don't have a lot of maneuverability.
On crowded days, big waves can pose yet another challenge.
In the gorge, you get the swells are so big that if they're laying in the water, they can completely disappear under the swell. So you can be up in the air and look down, and all of a sudden, right where you're hoping to land, there's some guy trying to water start or who's just crashed.
These athletes have to be constantly alert in this volatile environment. Coming up, windsurfers brave the river in the most extreme sailing conditions.
I think 70 mile per hour is probably the upper limit of windsurfing. It starts getting dangerous at that point.
Plus, getting knocked out by a swift hit to the head.
It just loaded up with power, smacked me in the head really hard. I was going, please don't pass out, please don't pass out.
When Epic Conditions returns. Deep in the Cascade Mountains of the Pacific Northwest, wind and water collide, creating the ultimate location for windsurfers.
The gorges is a really unique windsurfing experience because we're inland on this little body of water that has this intense wind velocity flowing across it.
When winds reach epic speeds, the river is what the locals call nuking.
Windsurfers say it's nuking. That means it is seriously windy. It's kind of the windiest days out here in the gorge. You'd say it's nuking at the hatchery. Everybody's got to go.
It's really nuking. There's smoke blowing across the river, and it looks like sheets of spray.
The white caps on the river start to blend into one, and the river just looks like a white froth from so much wind. That's nuking.
That looks absolutely terrifying and scary. The stormiest weather on the water, all the things you've been taught as a kid. Don't go out on the boat when it's rough water. You can go out and play in weather that should otherwise be terrifying. And that's quite a rush.
The element of danger always plays a factor on extremely windy days. And in the gorge, winds can reach speeds of 70 miles an hour.
It starts getting dangerous at that point.
It gets super windy. You'll definitely be hurting the next morning after getting slammed a few hundred times.
I've had definitely my share of scrapes, cuts, and bruises.
I've broken both my feet.
I've blown out my eardrums.
I've also got 3 herniated discs in my neck that messes with me every once in a while.
For Wyatt, one of the most frightening situations in the water is being hit in the head.
The sail can really load up with a lot of power, and the leading edge is a hard carbon mast that can slam into you.
In the middle of a trick, Wyatt was struck by the sail.
I thought I was going to be able to grab it, and it just loaded up with power, smacked me in the head really hard. And I came up totally seeing stars, and I was worried about passing out in the water. I was going, please don't pass out, please don't pass out, please don't pass out.
Injuries and close calls aside, Wyatt's passion for windsurfing keeps him coming back to the gorge.
Windsurfing is totally addicting. I always ask for more, definitely.
Coming up, how will these athletes take windsurfing to even greater heights?
There's really endless possibilities.
It's really, really windy. You can go really, really high. The sky's the limit.
When Epic Conditions continues.